Hello, I'm the Pageant Nerd and thank you for checking out part 2 of my new series, TPN by Request, where I cover your video suggestions. The first episode looked at the current state of the Miss Venezuela organisation. Click the link in the corner if you haven't watched it already. Actually, watch this video first, then you can check that one out. Part 2 of this series was suggested by my wonderful viewer Emil Lion, who has left me many fantastic comments to my videos over the past couple of years. Emil also suggested I compile some of the Miss Universe blunders that have taken place at the pageant, which may have cost a contestant the crown, prevented them from progressing further than maybe what they should have, or maybe just created some drama. You know we all love some drama at Miss Universe, don't we? I actually had a lot of fun compiling this video, so thanks Emil, and I hope all of you enjoy the final product. This does not cover every mishap that's happened in prelims, for example. This is mainly covering the contestants that reach the semis or the finals at least. I've put the incidents into categories and arranged them in chronological order. Then I'll give you my 2 cents, aka nerdy comments, on some of the more memorable ones. Just to be clear, this is just a bit of fun, so please don't come at me for being disrespectful. If this is going to upset you, hit the stop button right now. Okay, let's get started. In 1999 in Trinidad and Tobago, Miriam Quiambao of the Philippines had that fall in prelims as you just saw. Now she recovered well and got the crowd on her side, and she happened to mention this stumble on finals night.
What have you stood up for recently?
Oh, when I fell on the stage last Friday. Through this example of mine, I have shown courage and strength of being a woman, of being who I am.
And it seemed to win the crowd over even more. And I thought that it was a really nice tactic to show a bit of vulnerability, really just turning some minor mishap into a quite heartfelt message. Now, who could forget the consecutive years that Miss USA fell in the evening gown competition? And it wasn't just a minor stumble as we've seen some of these contestants here. In 2007, this was a case of falling flat on your bum for Rachel Smith. And in 2008, Crystal Stewart nearly did the same. The main controversy was that in 2007, Rachel Smith, despite this mishap, continued on to the final 5. And being held in Mexico City and Mexico not progressing to the top 5 created some major drama at the venue, and Rachel was booed for the remainder of her appearance in the competition. Not surprisingly, she ended up placing 4th runner-up, but it was one of these years where Rachel may well have won the crown had she have not had this stumble. 2007 really was one of those years where there wasn't a standout delegate, and with Brazil and Japan being the top 2, it really is a possibility that Rachel could have been contending for the crown had that not have happened. Crystal Stewart, unfortunately, the following year didn't have the same luck, and she failed to make the top 5 after that stumble. It is unfortunate because it looks like there was a bit of confusion over the break in the evening gown competition where the music was being played, because you can see the performers rushing off stage because Jerry Springer happened to announce Miss USA, presumably a little early. So you've got to think that Crystal would feel slightly robbed of her moment because she probably was not as fully prepared to make her entrance as she otherwise would have. Water under the bridge, I suppose. She is now the Miss USA National Director. But likewise, in 2008, you would imagine that Crystal would have made the top 5 otherwise, although you had Colombia and Venezuela that year, probably one of the strongest top 2s in the history of the Miss Universe pageant. Interestingly, in the 2010s, we had 3 eventual winners who had minor mishaps during the evening gown competition. Olivia Culpo from the USA had a trip on finals night. Gabriela Isler of Venezuela had trouble with her gown in prelims and, not surprisingly, changed to another gown for finals night. And of course, Pia Wurtzbach in 2015 had her minor trip, but she recovered so well and gave us the smize at the end. In 2018, Tamarin Green's dress caught on the bottom of her shoe, and as you can see in some photos afterwards, it would appear that she actually ended up damaging the dress to get herself out of that situation. And I would not say that it prevented her from winning the crown. She did have Catriona Gray to compete against. In 2019, there were so many slips in the prelims, largely due to a substandard environment, I would say, in a ballroom, not even in the main venue. We've had some incidents like that over the past few years. So that didn't really affect any of the contestants. We had Indonesia and France, who both had rather major slips in prelims, but both of them ended up reaching the top 10, so clearly that did not have any impact. So the moral of this story, I suppose, is provided that you stay upright, losing your footing during the evening gown competition is not going to cost you the title.
I'm afraid I prefer an Englishman.
You prefer Englishmen?
Yes. They're very nice, but...
Yes, you see that
I
reaction?
said the wrong thing.
Those are not Englishmen.
Some of you younger pageant watchers probably haven't seen that clip from 1982 where Miss England happened to insult the entire Lima, Peru crowd by saying that she preferred Englishmen. And I know that she was very young at the time, and pageant training then was nothing like what it is now. But you would have to think that if you're in an international pageant that you shouldn't be saying things to get the crowd offside.
You want to open a restaurant, and the person you would most like to invite for dinner is Margaret Thatcher. Who would you want to be her dinner partner?
Tú no.
Not you.
Me gustaría que fuera su esposo.
Now, I've covered Miss Universe 1992 in great detail in some of my other videos, and this also included Carolina Ijak's question and answer in the top 6, and how, having dominated the 3 rounds in semi-finals, she failed to place in the top 3 because of the somewhat non-committal answer she gave in the judges' questions round.
If you could know one thing about your future, what would you like to know?
I wouldn't like to know anything about my future because I like to live my day, every day, as it's the only day I have in life. And I project my life, but I wouldn't like to know what's in the future.
Now, I have said on a couple of occasions that I felt that this format was unfair because it places too much emphasis on that answer itself and doesn't necessarily factor in performance over the entire night. We saw that even more recently with Miss Thailand in 2019, who was given arguably a more difficult question than the other top 5, and she failed to progress further than that top 5 spot. Back to 1992, and admittedly the field in Bangkok that year was impressively strong, with Namibia and Colombia the eventual top 2. But when a contestant places first in 2 of the semi-final rounds and second in the other one, as Carolina did, you would have to say that, provided that she didn't completely screw up that question and answer round, which she didn't, she deserved to place in the top 3. Now, I know I will have people disagreeing with me here, but I do feel that in the instances where contestants were not given the same question, i.e. having the headphones placed on them and then answering exactly the same question so it is an even playing field, I think that there is too much luck involved. At the end of the day, Miss Universe is about selecting the best delegate to represent the organisation for the year. And if it means that someone is not going to progress further, let alone win the title, just because of the card that they picked in a bowl, I feel that that really is not fair. And it does, to a certain extent, show that this is, in some instances, an entertainment product as opposed to a legitimate search for the right winner.
If you had the opportunity to live forever, would you want to, and why?
I would not want to live forever because I don't believe that one can live forever. And so I don't think I would want to live forever.
This was also relevant in 2008 when Colombia's Taliana Vargas won both the swimsuit and the evening gown semi-final competitions. But because she did actually stumble quite poorly in the top 5 final question, she ended up finishing first runner-up to Diana Mendoza.
If you could go back in time and change a moment in your past, what would that be and why?
In my life, I have been it's been a wonderful life for me. I come from a big family, huge values, so there's nothing I will change in my past life. I have been happy every single day of my entire life because of my family. They're always thinking the best for everything, so everything perfect.
Clearly, Diana Mendoza was a very deserving Miss Universe, but you would have to wonder if Taliana had have nailed that Q&A round, would she have ended up winning the title?
What is one big mistake that you've made in your life, and what did you do to make it right?
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful question. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Las Vegas. You know what, sir? In my 22 years of existence, I can say that there is nothing major problem that I have done in my life, because I am very confident with my family, with the love that they are giving to me. So thank you so much that I am here. Thank you so much.
In 2012, Venezuela, you would say, really did screw her chances up with her top 5 Q&A response.
I think that we should have a straight way to go in our similar or in our life as it is. For example, I am a surfer, and I think that the best way that I can take is the wave that I wait for it. So please do our only low that we can do. Thank you, Vegas.
It was admirable that she tried to answer the question in English, but unfortunately she got a bit tongue-tied. 2012 was one of those years, again, where you would say that there wasn't a standout delegate. Given that Olivia Culpo of the USA ended up winning the crown, despite not necessarily being one of the title favourites going into finals night, and also her rather weak answer, and compared to the answer of the Philippines' Janine Tugonon, you would say that Irene Esser would have had a really strong chance of winning the crown had she have answered better in that Q&A section. And then, had Gabriela Isler fulfilled her destiny to win 2013's crown, we may have had another back-to-back. Now, this one from 2014 might spark some debate, and you may not have even noticed it before, but to me, it might explain why Jamaica only placed 4th runner-up that year.
1 of 3 women who will experience violence in her lifetime. What can we be done to get that number down?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Hello?
Well, that happens a lot.
Yes, she was a huge favourite and she performed extremely well on the rest of finals night, but her response to Emilio Estefan's question, admittedly his accent is rather thick, but her reaction I thought was quite disrespectful, and I tend to think that that may have been noticed by the judges and impacted her final result. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Staying on Jamaica, and 4 years later, their delegate completely froze during the opening statement delivered by the top 20.
And
Now, we've all been there, clamming up when we just need to get our message across, but clearly your preparations for Miss Universe also need to be how you handle nerves. Miss Universe Japan 2006, Kurara Chibana, is one of my most favourite contestants of all time. Unfortunately, she had two things standing against her in the Miss Universe pageant in LA. One was her finals night gown, which I just find it rather bemusing that she went with that rather understated black gown. It was perfectly fine, but from what I understand, this gown is what she wore in prelims, which, I don't know, I tend to think is a little bit more interesting. The other thing that she had against her was clearly this, Zuleika Rivera's gown, which as soon as you saw her appear on that stage on finals night, it was game over. In 2010, Puerto Rico's Mariana Vicente wore a much better gown, in my opinion, in prelims than what she did on finals night. Her finals night gown just felt too cumbersome and it restricted her movement. Same too for, now I know this one's going to be controversial, Irene Esser, Miss Venezuela in 2012. Now I know that the one that she wore on finals night was beautiful and it was in keeping with the Christmas theme of that year's pageant, but I just felt that her preliminary gown was so much more interesting and she really worked that gown very, very well. In 2014, Mary Jean Lastimosa of the Philippines wore a Colombian designer's gown, Alfredo Barraza, who also designed the winning gown for Paulina Vega. Mary Jean attracted a fair bit of criticism for wearing that gown, but it did appear to pave the way for Pia Wurtzbach to use a Filipino designer the following year. The story of how Pia ended up wearing that iconic blue gown on finals night at Miss Universe 2015 was told in wonderful detail on the Mississology YouTube channel. You should check that video out. The final two contestants here both ended up reaching the top 10, which is nothing to sneeze at, but their gown choice on finals night may have let them down, those being 2014 Venezuela and 2018 Nepal. Nepal in particular had a fantastic gown during prelims, and I really wish she had have worn that one because it may have placed her in the top 5, but we'll never know. It might be a little unfair of me to be making fun of 1980s hairstyles, but in the case of Miss Canada 1985 and Miss Sweden 1987, they had much better hairstyles in earlier parts of the competition, namely the swimsuit fashion show, which was shown before the top 10 semi-finalists were announced. Miss Thailand in 1984 similarly had an updo, and she was only 19 years old at this point. Those hairdos definitely make them look a lot older. Fast forward to 2005, and Claudia Henkel of South Africa was in a similar boat. Her hairdo on finals night was very different to how she had it, for example, during the Parade of Nations. And I tend to think that that hairstyle may have helped her progress further than what she did because she was a standout contestant that year. In 2013, Miss Puerto Rico had much better styling in the prelims. And in 2015, I wish Miss Curacao had have kept her hair down for the evening gown competition because likewise, that updo just didn't do her any favours. On the flip side, there was a major turnaround in 2009 from prelims to finals night for Estefania Fernandez of Venezuela, who ended up winning the crown and taking a back-to-back for her country. But had she have styled herself the way she did in prelims, I doubt that that would have happened. Likewise, Miss South Africa, whose styling in prelims compared to finals night was, I think, rather inferior, and I think she made some really good decisions with her makeup, hairdo and evening gown on finals night. In 2014, a social media post with Miss Israel and Miss Lebanon in the same picture sparked massive controversy in both their countries. Lebanon, like most Middle Eastern and Arab nations, does not recognize Israel as a sovereign state. This is mirrored in the sporting world, where many Middle Eastern or Arab athletes are prevented from competing against Israelis. In 2014, neither Miss Israel nor Miss Lebanon were considered title contenders, so you would say that it didn't affect their chances. After all, they are just trying to represent their country and do everyone proud, but they also need to be aware of the political implications of their actions. and it would be remiss of me not to mention Sarah Rose Summers, Miss USA, who appeared to impact her chances of progressing any further than the top 20 by some rather insensitive comments, admittedly off-the-cuff remarks, in a social media post that appeared to make fun of some of the non-English speaking contestants, namely Miss Vietnam. Sarah only ended up making the top 20 as a wildcard, and you can tell that she was very relieved and grateful for that opportunity, but that mishap may have prevented her from progressing any further. That's a wrap on my compilation of Miss Universe Catastrophes and Blunders. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, hit subscribe and ring the bell for alerts when I release new content. I'll be back soon with my next video, but in the meantime, it's goodbye from me, the pageant.